Hey guys, Ben with Golf and Guns. I want to start with asking a question: flinching or anticipation? Okay, if I was to go to the dictionary and define flinching, it would be defined as a withdrawal or a shrinking from something that is unpleasant or dangerous, as we perceive as unpleasant or dangerous. Anticipation would be performing an act prior to another act occurring, okay? Or acting upon something instead of being acted upon. Right? I think there's a lot of confusion or misunderstanding on what actually is a flinch and what isn't. And I think it's important to understand the difference. If I was to take a gun for the first time, right? And if I was to go ahead and let's say I didn't really have any experience shooting, went ahead and wanted to shoot a gun for the first time, right? So I get this gun up here, I go ahead and I make a fire on the gun, right? I make a shot on the gun. Most likely what'll happen in most cases is we're going to flinch as a result of that gun, okay? And I'll explain why that is. So when that gun goes off, I'm probably going to close my eyes, right? Probably gonna close my eyes. As a natural reaction gun, I'm gonna close my eyes, probably my head's gonna pop up a little bit and wanna come back as a result of that gun going off, right? And so those actions would be consistent with a withdrawal or a shrinking from the gun, right? That gun's loud, it goes off, it's violent, the body's trying to kind of shrink or back away from that a little bit to avoid maybe a perceived damage from the gun, that it might injure him or hurt him, right? Or a surprise to that, okay? So that would be more what we would consider a flinch. If I continue to shoot, the body is going to go into more of an anticipation mode. Okay, the body now knows, has now learned. If I shot that gun for the first time, the body has now learned some things about that gun and what's gonna happen and what to expect. So naturally our body says, okay, here's what we know about this gun. We know it's violent, we know it's loud, we know it's gonna kick in our hands. We're gonna go ahead and act upon the gun prior to the gun acting so that we can minimize some of those things that caused us to flinch, right? So some examples of anticipation would be the following. So we get this gun up, we're gonna go ahead, maybe after that first shot, we're gonna lean into it a little bit more. Maybe that first shot kind of knocked us back a little bit, right? So we're gonna lean into the gun a little bit. We're taking an action on the gun. So we're gonna lean into it a little bit, right? Maybe we're gonna say, hey, we're gonna grip this thing a little bit harder, right? We're gonna get a hold of this gun and give it a little more grip because man, that thing almost jumped right out of my hands, right? So that'll be another thing that we're gonna do. Lean into it, we're gonna grip it, and then the body's gonna say, I really didn't like the fact that squeezing this trigger, I didn't know when this gun was gonna go off, right? That scared me because I'm squeezing, all of a sudden the gun fires and it scared me and I flinched. So what we're gonna naturally wanna do is we're gonna say, okay, let's go ahead and yank that trigger because we can time it, right? We can time it. Let's go ahead and get up here with this gun and we're gonna pull that trigger like that, right? So we can kind of time when this thing's gonna go off. When we tend to shoot and we're having what people determine as flinching problems, right? Oh, you're flinching, you're shooting low and left. You're flinching, you're shooting low and left. Well, you're not flinching, you're anticipating. And so a powerful movement in our body, right? If I was to make a strong movement to resist something, it's gonna be across my body and down. That's a strong movement, okay? Not out here, not up. Across my body and down, I can engage a lot of shoulder muscles, chest muscles, a lot of hips, and it's a very powerful movement in the body for a right-handed guy. For a left-handed, just the opposite. And so in an effort to manage the recoil of the gun, it's natural to drive the gun low and left to mitigate the gun coming back up and at us, right? So again, that is an anticipatory move, not a flinch. As we shoot more and more, we develop anticipation habits and not flinching habits. Our body is gonna say, hey, let's go ahead, instead of being acted upon by the gun, let's take some measurements to act upon the gun prior to that happening to try to mitigate that. Don't confuse flinching and anticipation. Flinching, we want to overcome flinching. We don't want to overcome anticipation. We just want to manage how we anticipate. We want to have a good stance. We want to have a good grip on the gun, and those are some of the anticipation acts that we're taking, and they're not bad. So it's important to understand, again, those differences, that we get that right. It'll help us understand where we need to be better and what we need to get rid of and what we want to not get rid of that the body naturally does, but just fine-tune that and allow that to be a little bit better. And so with that in mind, I hope that as you guys kind of take that out there and do some shooting, you can kind of think about those things a little bit. Some of those actions of anticipation would include trigger squeeze, would include grip, stance, and those will all be things that we'll talk about in videos in the future here. So again, Ben with Golf and Guns, appreciate you guys tuning in.